Welcome to Stutors. Today we are going to discuss the second chapter of the Human Physiology unit, Breathing and Exchange of Gases. Respiration is essential for life because it provides energy for carrying out all the life processes which are necessary to keep the organism alive. Breathing is the process of exchange of oxygen from the atmosphere with carbon dioxide produced by the cells. Now, breathing is not similar as that of respiration, but breathing is a phase of respiration. Respiration, it is the biological process by which the oxidation of nutrients takes place in the living cell. The site of respiration is the mitochondria. Now, depending upon the availability of oxygen, the respiration can be classified as two, anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. The anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration or fermentation is the respiration without the utilization of oxygen. As a result, the incomplete oxidation of the nutrients takes place. Anaerobic respiration can be classified as two, alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. The end product in alcoholic fermentation is ethanol and carbon dioxide. It is commonly seen in yeast. Lactic acid fermentation, the end product is the lactic acid. It is seen in the lactic acid bacteria or lactobacillus. It is seen in the mammalian RBC as the RBC lack the mitochondria, and mitochondria is the site of aerobic respiration. Due to the absence of mitochondria, the RBCs show anaerobic respiration. And the skeletal muscles during heavy exercise show lactic acid fermentation. The accumulation of this lactic acid in the muscle cells leads to the muscle cramps. Aerobic respiration. The respiration with the utilization of oxygen is known as aerobic respiration. Here the nutrients are completely oxidized and the end product, water, energy and carbon dioxide is produced. Aerobic respiration has two phases, external respiration and internal respiration. Now this external respiration or breathing, as we commonly call it, or ventilation, is the intake of oxygen to the lungs from the surrounding medium and elimination of carbon dioxide. It is a physical process. As a result, no energy is released in this phase. Now the internal or cellular respiration. It is the exchange of gases between the blood and the tissue. The oxygen is utilized in this by the tissue for the metabolic activities and the resultant carbon dioxide is released. It is a biochemical process. As a result, energy is released. Now let's look into the respiratory organs of the animal kingdom. We know the animal kingdom is a diverse kingdom and this diversity is also seen in the case of the respiratory organs. The primitive organisms like sponges, cylindrids, flatworm, the body wall act as the respiratory organ and the respiration takes place through simple diffusion. And in the case of annelids like the earthworm, the moist cuticle act as the respiratory organ. In the case of insects, the tracheal tube act as the respiratory organ. In the case of fishes, the gills act as the respiratory organ. And in the case of mammals like us, the lungs act as the respiratory organ. Now the respiration through the lungs, it is known as the pulmonary respiration. And the respiration through the skin, it is called the cutaneous respiration. Now the respiration through the tracheal tubes, it is known as tracheal respiration. The respiration through gills, it is known as brachial respiration. Now this is the diagram of the human respiratory system given in the NCERT. I would suggest you to follow the diagrams given in the NCERT because most of the diagram based questions for the entrance examinations comes directly from the NCERT. Now you can see the epiglottis, larynx, trachea, bronchus, alveolus, pleural membranes in this diagram. Now let's see the larynx. The larynx has a cartilaginous covering called the epiglottis. Now the epiglottis, the function of the epiglottis is it prevents the entry of food into the respiratory tract during swallowing. Then the larynx, then the trachea. You can see a ring-like structures in the trachea. These are nothing but cartilaginous rings which prevent the trachea from collapsing during respiration. Now this trachea divides into two bronchus, then the bronchus into bronchioles, then finally into the alveoli. Alveoli is the site where the diffusion of the gases takes place. Now we can also see the diaphragm here. The diagram of the diaphragm can be also seen and the positioning of the heart is also between the two lungs. Now let's look into the respiratory system in detail. Now the air from the external environment enters the respiratory tract through the nostrils. Then it passes into the nasal cavity and then into the pharynx. Now pharynx acts as the common passage of food and air. Then the air passes down to the larynx. Now the opening of this larynx is called glottis. It has a cartilaginous covering called epiglottis, which prevent the entry of food into the respiratory tract. The thyroid cartilage of the larynx becomes larger and prominent in males, and it can be seen as a prominence called as the Adam's apple in the case of males. Now the air moves down into the trachea, also called as the windpipe. We have seen that the trachea has cartilaginous rings in the previous diagram. At the level of the fifth thoracic vertebrae, the trachea bifurcates into two bronchus. Now the air then passes down into the primary bronchus. That is, the trachea has divided into two bronchus. Now the trachea passes into the primary bronchus, then into the secondary bronchus, then the tertiary bronchus, terminal bronchus, alveolar duct, and finally into the alveoli. Alveoli is the actual site of diffusion of gas between the blood and the tissue. The alveoli are irregular, vascularized, bag-like structure. That is, it is richly supplied with blood vessels. As a result, it is richly vascularized. The total number of alveoli in both the lungs is 300 million. Our body has 300 million alveoli. The total alveolar surface area is a total of 100 meters square. Now the part starting from the external nostrils up to our terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting part of the respiratory system, whereas the alveoli and their ducts forms the respiratory or the exchange part of the respiratory system. The function of this conducting part is it transports the atmospheric air into the alveoli, and it clears the air from the foreign particles like the dust or the pollen grains. And the exchange part is the site, that is, the exchange part is the alveoli and its ducts. It is the actual site of diffusion of carbon dioxide and oxygen between the blood and the atmospheric air. Now let's look into our respiratory organ, that is lungs. The lungs, they are paired conical spongy respiratory organ. The location of our lungs, it is within our thoracic cavity and it is an airtight chamber. Now the thoracic vertebra, dorsally the thoracic vertebra and ventrally the sternum and laterally the ribs, and lower we have the muscular structure called diaphragm. All these structures together make the thoracic cavity an airtight chamber, and this airtight chamber, it is necessary to maintain the pressure inside the thoracic cavity for the proper exchange of gases. As we told, the lungs are paired, that is, it is two in number. So the space between the two lungs, it is called mediastinum, and it is within this mediastinum the positioning of the heart takes place. We have a covering for the lungs, that is a double layered covering of the lungs. It is called pleura. The pleural fluid is present between the double layers, and this fluid reduces the friction on the lung surface. That is the function of the pleural fluid. As we told, the lungs are two in number, that is right lung and left lung. Both these lungs show a number of differences. Now let's see. The right lung, it has three lobes, that is two fissures are present in the right lung, transverse and oblique fissures. These two fissures divide the lung into three lobes. A single fissure divides the left lung into two lobes. The right lung, it is broader than the left lung and narrower than the left lung, it is narrower than the right lung. As we told, the heart is present in the mediastinum, that is the space between the two lungs. A cardiac notch is seen in the case of left lung. Due to the presence of the heart, a cardiac notch is seen in the left lung, which is absent in the right lung. The weight of the left lung, it is 600 gram, and the right lung weighs almost 700 gram. The length of the left lung, that is, it is a bit longer than the right lung, that is, the left lung is longer than the right lung, and the right lung, it is shorter than the left lung.